Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there. It's Dr. Gemma, and this is episode 223 of the new series of the Cognitive Podcast. Hooray, 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 hooray. I actually have just had a really nice Sunday in which I rediscovered the joys of watching a film. Go figure. Your comments are very welcome. Please feel free to comment on the blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, or you can go to our group on Ravelry in the warm thanks department. I want to thank Amy Storm, who made a comment that I have not followed through on, but I think it's really worth keeping it and quoting it because I think it's really important. I can't say that I've verified it, but I believe her. She says, I'd add to the info on freezing your credit. Please do this for your children too. You don't want them to get to the age where they are getting jobs, applying for credit, trying to rent an apartment, only to find there was unknown fraud happening during their childhood. Okay, I had no idea anything like that was possible. That's Dr. Gemma putting in that last sentence right there. I had no idea. So she says, unfortunately, the freezing process for minors is not as easy as for adults. For kids, you have to do it by mail and send in copies of birth certificate, social security card, your own driver's license, etc. And the requirements are slightly different for each credit bureau. One had a form you downloaded and filled out and included with the other documents to mail in. One required you submit a written request. Anyway, it was a pain and took a decent amount of time, but the peace of mind of having it done has been worth it. Wow! Amy Storm, thank you. I had no idea any of this was even out there or even possible. I'm really astonished. Please, if you're going to do this, send it registered mail, return receipt requested, because you're sending a lot of sensitive information there. So you want as much special handling on that as you can get. But wow, I hadn't even thought to check my son who's 18, and now I'm obviously going to. So thank you so much for that. Meanwhile, I also want to continue to thank my community on the ground in the Santa Clarita Valley, my people in this group, of course, most of all, my people on Reddit. If you look at the top of the show notes, you will see the Woobles put out Lord of the Rings stuff this week. I'm sorry. Well, the Frodo looks good. The Gandalf looks suspiciously like Dumbledore. Actually, they were very careful not to let him look like Dumbledore. You can tell they really thought about that. I got to tell you, the Gollum and the Balrog, I'm like, yeah, okay. But, again, it really shows you that different people have different tastes on this, because a lot of people were really excited by this. Some of the Woobles stuff that I thought was absolutely brilliant got a pass by a lot of other people. I mean, you there's no telling. The thing about the Woobles is there's like 200 something of them now or something like that. If you count all the little bits and bobs, there's something for everyone. But one of my colleagues over there calls me the fairy god Ferret because my name involves a ferret. And then someone did my ferret as, I don't have a pet ferret. It's just in my head, I promise you. But anyway, someone did a ferret in Gandalf's robes. I don't know if they're Gandalf. Well, there's somebody in the ring group's robes, I guess, because it's got the little ring clasp. But there it is. I couldn't resist it. Oh, my goodness. What's on my hooks and needles? Well, I didn't finish anything finish it February as it drew to an end. But the stash toss is still gloriously situated at 17 skeins in and 14 skeins out. We're working on it, gang. We're working on it. And Finish It February, of course, has come to an end as I record this. It's Madhouse March. It's actually Sunday, March 2nd at 8:27 p.m. But seriously, folks, I have decided that I'm having Mending March, or maybe Make It March. But one of my last decisions about Finish It February was I ended up with 6 projects in my Ravelry queue, 2 of which had not even been started. But I stuck them in the queue, my projects queue, because I so wanted to make them. So I decided a good way to wind up Finish It February. Now you'd think at this point I'd finish the cardigan, the Blue Iris Blueberry Waffle Socks. No, I decided to start the last 2 projects, the Estrella sweater and the September sweater. And I'm really happy I did. Really, really happy. They're working their way along. Let me tell you that I didn't do anything on the Blueberry Waffle Socks this week. I don't remember doing anything. I'm still on the foot of number 1. I'm almost to the toe. And I'm just doing it stockinette. Only the legs are in the Blueberry Waffle pattern. Because at that time I wanted a lot of popcorn knitting, as the Knitmore girls would call it. Just plain stockinette. Now it's like, I got a lot more popcorn knitting coming up. But in those days, a whole 10 days ago, I think, when I made this decision. But I'm quite happy about it. There's never a regret when you do a Blueberry Waffle sock. No matter how you do them, whether you do the whole sock in it or the top of the foot and the leg or just the leg, they're always beautiful. Meanwhile, I said that I started the Estrella sweater. You can see a picture of it. It's a top down. This is by Bad Wolf Girl Knits, alias Megan Regan. And I love her stuff. You may remember I did one of her Halloween sweaters, one of her autumnal collections with the cats on it. And I did the Llama Love. What I really like about Megan's sweaters is she says she's doing them in DK. But a lot of times she's using a worsted weight, a size 4. So I'm not sure why she does that. But she uses size 7 needles. And when I did the Llama Love, I used a worsted weight with size 7, and I got the best fitted sweater ever for me. The other thing is, on the Llama Love, she has a 41-inch chest measurement. She doesn't have that on any other sweater I have seen. So I tend to go back to the Llama Love when I make her sweaters, like when I made the Halloween sweater with the cats on it. Now this time I didn't. This time I said, let's go ahead with the 45-inch sweater. I'm not sure why I did that. I have to tell you honestly, I keep thinking, should I have gone back to the 41-inch? But having the extra ease isn't really going to bother me. I've already tried this on to check the neckline. The neckline's fitting wonderfully. I'm using Lisa Souza's Superwash hand-dyed merino on this for the main color. This is St. Louis Blues. And I'm using Malabrigo Rios in Sunset. The Rios looks very yellow on the skein, but is looking very orange on the sweater in contrast with the St. Louis Blues. How many ways can I say I don't care? In fact, I really, really like the contrast. Very, very beautiful. I'm just getting down to the part where you have moons going across, crescent moons. What's really nice about this is I never do one of Megan's sweaters. I never do the color work all the way down the body the way she does it. I just use them for the yoke because I like a solid body on my sweaters with a Fair Isle yoke. I don't like the way it looks a lot of the time when you continue the pattern too far down the chest. Now, a lot of sweaters do that, and they have a very full pattern, and it still is a yoke, but it just goes a lot farther down the chest. But Megan tends to vary the pattern in interesting ways down the chest and the tummy. It isn't going to look good on me. If I were younger and had a slightly better shape, sure, it would look great. But for me, I look at these and go, no, I really just want a very pretty yoke that ends just above the most full part of the breast line. So that's what I'm doing, which means there's only 28 rows of color work here. I think right now as I record this, I'm on number 22. It gets kind of intense through the moons. And then after that, I will go through 2 rows of solid blues, one of which will be an increase row the 4th increase row, and then I will do a row of the solid sunset orangey, and then I will just do straight up blues, and depending on how much yarn I have left, when I get down to the ends of the arms and the bottom of the body, I may save the ribbing in blue, but do bands of orange down towards the waistline. We'll see. We'll see. I should have more than enough of the Lisa Souza yarn, though, I must say. Meanwhile, I didn't do anything on the 10 square bag and the Lakeside cardigan, but I started the September sweater. This is crocheted in what is called a herringbone half stitch. So let me tell you about this one. This is a very basic crocheted sweater. Now, your average crocheted sweater is starting at the bottom in the round, you get up to the armpits, and you go up the front, and then you go over the head, go to the back, and crochet it together, something like that, and you put tubes on for the arms. This is a little different. This is instead, you do 2 big panels, and each panel is a rectangle, and the long side of the rectangle starts at the back at your butt, goes up over your shoulder and down the front to as far down as you want it to go. Okay, so you're going to have 2 panels like that, and there you leave a space when you sew the front seam and the back seams together. You leave a space for your neck and your head to come out of it. So that's nice. And I would assume, I haven't really read the whole pattern as well as I should have, that you're going to go around the neckline with a single crochet to reinforce it. And probably I'm going to do at least some ribbing attached, crocheted ribbing attached to the bottom and the cuffs. Okay. This pattern is a smart, easy pattern. It is a fundamental crochet sweater pattern. If you think like a crocheter, it's going to make sense to you. However, the pattern itself introduced me to the herringbone half double crochet, which I really like. If you did this pattern in a single crochet, this thing would weigh a ton, as you can probably figure out. By the way, I am not talking Tunisian crochet here. I want to make clear I'm talking the more traditional crochet. All right. So if you do it in single crochet, it's going to weigh a ton. If you do it in double crochet, the weight of these rectangular panels will drag apart the stitches that are at a right angle to what you would normally expect and pull them wider. And double crochet stitches, if you're British treble crochet, are very wide anyway. They're gappy. So the herringbone half double solves the problem. Even a half double crochet, I think Brits call that a double crochet, even that would get dragged too far open. So the herringbone has a little more strength and structure and holds the stitch more closed. So I really like this idea very much. Now when I've done my basic crocheted sweaters, I've always gone to the half double crochet, the British double crochet, which is my favorite crochet stitch. I really just like it. I really have fallen for the herringbone half double. It's a half double, but you add an extra loop in the beginning. And I'm not going to describe it because I'll just make everybody's head explode, if not my own. Now, the problem with the September sweater pattern, I got gauge because the gauge, remember these are rectangles, and they tell you to measure gauge along the short side, X number of rows equals X number of stitches, I think, something like that. Okay, that didn't work because, yeah, that works on the short side, but the short side is just going to be on your waistline. On the long side, they told me to do 225 chains. Oh my goodness, that thing was a tunic. It was way too big. So I cut that back to 150. I really just kind of eyeballed it and thought, take about a third off and see what you get. And that's how it worked. And it worked very, very nicely for me. It's really just perfect. And I will crochet on probably ribbing on the bottom just to give it a slightly more finished look. I'm not sure if that's in the original September sweater, but adding crochet at a right angle that way is very, very easy to do. And adding a crocheted ribbing is very easy to do. Sounds a lot harder than it is. So I'm enjoying this, but I have to tell you, when you are doing the chaining, really, they should have had a schematic in the chart that shows you the length you want along the sides, the longer sides of the rectangle. Now, that's going to be really difficult to do because you're dealing with your chest size. So I have a 40-inch chest, So I usually go for like 41 or 42. But if you are a 40-inch chest size because you are a 32-inch rib cage, and then you've got, well, you've got basically a lot of endowment there, versus if you have a 38-inch rib cage and you're wearing a B cup as opposed to like a 36 and a D cup. I'm just going to do it that way. And I'm not going to explain how cups work, but you can figure it out. Okay, the problem is, what I'm trying to say is, you can have people who have very different physical builds and have the same chest size around the most broad part of the chest. And that's what goes wrong in this sweater. That they were making this for a 40-inch chest size. They were expecting me to be much bigger through the torso than I am, much wider around my tummy than I am. So that's okay. I mean, this one would be very, very hard to nail down, to be fair to the person who wrote this. And a lot of people have made it, and they come out looking pretty good. But it's a very basic crochet pattern. You shouldn't be intimidated by it. It's really two rectangles that go up and over your body. You have a center seam down the front, center seam from the top of the neck down the back, and you leave a neck hole. And then you're going to sew the sides, and then you're going to attach arm tubes. You know, you're going to go around the armholes that you leave for yourself when you sew together the sides, and then just do tubes. There's nothing hard about this. I'm grateful that whoever wrote this did assemble the pattern for the rest of us. I'm glad somebody did it, and I'm glad they came up with the herringbone half double crochet stitch. So you can see me standing there. I'm wearing one of the panels because I'm finished the first big panel, and you can see how it looks in the show notes. And I'm now about 3 rows into the second panel. I think it took me something like 33 or 34 rows of 150 stitches each row. It was very easy. It's very easy to keep the ends even. I was afraid I'd get an uneven edge on the short ends. No, it all worked out very, very nicely so far. So I'm looking forward to this one, and this is totally popcorn crochet. This is totally the same stitch over and over. There's no shaping, there's no nothing. This is about as simple as it's ever going to get. I have not touched my quilt squares. I'm kind of embarrassed to say I'm just kind of stalled. I've got 10 new ones sitting there pinned together waiting for me to do something. So I think I've got 69 finished so far, and I'm good with that. In Dizzy Blondes, I am still spinning the first 4-ounce braid of the Black Bowie Shadow fiber from Lisa Souza. I believe this is Blueface Leicester. I can't remember if I got the Superwash BFL or the regular. I think I got the regular. Anyway, it's lovely. I'm so close to finish that first braid. So meanwhile, I did celebrate the boycott on February 28th, the boycott of big companies. And I decided instead to celebrate also by getting a little more of Lisa's fiber. This is from Lisa Knit, singular, not knits, knit, singular. LisaKnit.com. I just went and ordered more. I just looked at that green and said, I love it so much. And I ordered another pound thinking I want enough of that to at least get myself a vest. And I'm not sure if I'm getting there yet because I'm taken up with spinning that camel hair silk blend that I bought. That's what I'm using the Black Bowie with. So I looked at the 2 camel hair silk blends. One I already spun, as I think I told you. And it's, that lovely camel hair brown, the natural color, but it's got splashes of purple dye on it and just a touch of a rust, which fades into it. So that's why I got the Black Bowie Shadow to ply with that. But I was looking at the other braid of the camel hair silk blend. It's actually mostly a kind of rust or persimmon color with little splashes, tiny splashes of purple that I think will disappear in it. So from Lisa Souza, I ordered a persimmon-colored fiber, and again, BFL, to spin and ply against that. So I'm not sure where we're going to go with this. Fortunately, my friend Nancy, when I described these, said that she would love a hat. So they may not have a future as sweaters. And that might be good because the camel hair gets up my nose, and even though I plan to ply it and spin it very, very tightly, it might be good to give those away. But I'm hoping to get a sweater for myself out of that beautiful green color whose name I can't remember. All of this I'm doing on my electric Eel 6.1 very, very happily. So let's get down to a strategy, shall we? This week, the one strategy that has really been working for me, strangely, is going back to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Everybody's heard this, but I think it bears repeating again right now, and that is to look for the helpers. Now, this would always be a good strategy. There's no reason, I mean, if you're not living in the United States and you don't see your government, going through a crisis, this is still a good one. But I have to say, I'm getting used to a lot of people just being very depressed around me, and I've certainly struggled with it myself over recent events. And I'm living a lot of the strategies I've been talking about, believe me. But this week, having now unplugged a lot from the internet, I began to realize how many good people there are on the internet. What is that about? Gemma, you just said you unplugged. Yeah, when I unplugged, my algorithms got very confused. And I started getting comments just from the nice people who I keep on my various social media apps. That, in other words, a lot of the hysteria stuff kind of toned down. But I also began to realize there are a lot of people just trying to do the right thing, trying to think the right thing, trying to help other people. And I've spent a lot of time this week thinking about that because a lot of people are, on my particular internet stuff, are making comments about how we push back. And it gets very overwhelming and very depressing, except it hit me that the reason that gets that way is people immediately start criticizing their suggestions. So we did the boycott on the 28th of February, and you knew that would never show up in American media. If we had any effect, they're going to hide it from us, the way things are going right now. But, whether or not it was worth it, it got people to start talking to each other about what we can do. It got people to start sort of waking up and looking at their spending habits. And I found myself realizing there's help in places I didn't realize. For example, small local merchants, people like Lisa Souza, that saying, look, here's a good provider. I have to change the way I knit. I can't knit and crochet with cheaper materials. Well, I have to say, Lisa's prices are really good. But I mean, this isn't garbage acrylic from, Joanne Fabrics, which I can say now since they're going under, sadly. Now, there is a place for all that. The issue here is we are very dependent on a lot of big box companies if you live in America. But, there is such a thing as investing locally, scaling down what you buy and get, helping your local merchants, but realizing they help you, realizing their presence gives you a better quality alternative with real people who can actually advise you on some of your decisions. So there's helpers in that. There's people I didn't think of as working with us to make things better. And, the people on the internet who are trying to organize, whether or not you think what they're doing is going to be that successful, they're trying. You have to look for those people. You have to remember that we can't just paint everybody with the same negative brush. So it is important to say, yeah, they're trying. And I think, you go to the doctor, they're under tremendous stress. We have lost the meeting we were supposed to have, our Center for Disease Control about what will the flu strain be next year because there are people in our government who don't want us to have vaccinations anymore. And there are all sorts of people trying to work around that, trying to recreate government websites that have been erased, trying to find solutions. And if you go to your doctor right now, they're probably stressed out of their mind because a lot of their annual guidance is not going to be there with movements like this. And you have to keep in mind, these people really do want to help. That people who go into medicine don't do it to make big bucks, although it's nice if they do. But the reality is most of them just wanted to help other people. So, these are the helpers. And there are helpers around you in your neighborhood. There are kind people who want to make things better, who want to support you. I was talking last week about when the strangers showed up in our driveway and I went out. And I talked to the older woman who was a little demented, and she was talking to me in Spanish, and I spoke back to her in Spanish, and it made her happy. And, she was trying to help me. She was praying for me, standing there praying for me. I don't have to believe the same things she believes to recognize that she understood that I came out to help them because they were lost. And she was being kind to me. And when I spoke back to her and took her seriously, I was being kind to her. And I felt so good in that moment. And I thought, well, yeah, that people are wandering around the neighborhood. I don't have to distrust them. They really seem to be lost. As opposed to the guy who came to my door earlier in the week and said, I'm here for the quail eggs. I talked to him through the Ring camera. It's a really weird thing. I said, I'm sorry, sir, you have the wrong address. He goes, oh, do I? Okay, sure, I'm hiding the quail eggs from you. Darn it. No, but seriously, it's odd because there are people who want to help you even in the littlest of things. There are people who mean well, who want to be kind. And I heard someone say, we have the MAGA nonsense, Make America Great Again. I'm not sure when that was. This America we're supposed to get back. The only one I think they're talking about is the one where, we oppressed people who weren't white. Women had no financial ability at all and were trapped in the home. But I guess that made us great. I don't know. But we did tax millionaires at 91%. Maybe we should go back to that part. Anyway, but someone was talking about, can we just do MACA, Make America Kind Again? And I think the sad thing there is we are kind. And it's very, very sad to see us represented this way. I'm not even going to talk about President Zelensky, who I have nothing but the highest admiration for. And, it's things like that we're just seeing our country as vicious. We're heartless. A government is heartless. It's created a crisis that it's attempting to, quote unquote, solve. And it's presenting a world to us that isn't real for most of us. Most of us are really kind to each other and trying to help each other. So I guess my strategy for the week, as corny as it may sound, it's perfectly cognitive behavioral, though I feel good about that. Please keep in mind that most of the people around you are good people and they want to help you, and try to stay focused on that. And I'm going to give a tip of the hat to my beloved too, because he's watching me do all this stuff, get the new passport, get the Social Security cards, and all this. And he said to me this week, he said, I really just want to go back to a simpler world, the world we had as children. And I'm thinking, not the world where I couldn't get a credit card, but otherwise I hear you. Not the world where we had segregation, but otherwise I hear you. But he was talking about the world where we weren't plugged in all the time, where we weren't tied into the internet for everything. And I said, yeah. And I was thinking about something Beautiful Christina said about what if your Amazon Kindles go bad. And someone referred to panic downloading for the Kindle, panic downloading from Amazon, all the digital stuff last week before they changed the way we could download. They didn't change it. They just took away one way you could download that made it easy to store in your files. And, I look back and I go, yeah, but the thing is, I downloaded all my books and they're in files that can be read by a number of readers, not simply Amazon's app, which is why I bothered to download them so that they could be read by the app from Kobo, from Caliber, from all sorts of things. And my goal, as I keep saying, is I want to get off the internet as much as I can when I retire. I'm off it as much as I can be now, to be honest. And I'm really, really liking that because, again, look at all the stuff I'm getting done. I had this fabulous day today, and I'll talk about that later. So, again, going for simple and looking for people who will help you and recognizing the people around you, for the most part, do mean well. And when you're on this internet world and there's all this raging and politicking and all this, you have to realize that you're getting a very distorted view of who people are. And I'm just going to leave it at that. But remember, to go back to Mr. Rogers, God rest his soul, let's look for the helpers. Meanwhile, I'm still carrying the information for the Social Security Administration website and the links to the credit companies where you can freeze your credit and get a free credit report. Oh, shoot, nothing much. We're raining here. Oh, boy, is that nice. And it's been very, very windy. So, bike desk from time to time. I hate to admit this, but when I did that 100K month, I think that was December, I'm really recovering a lot from that as well. But I've been able to tear out 5Ks for these last 2 5K races. So I'm looking forward to the Rock and Shamrock on March 16th, another 2 weeks, in fact, 2 weeks from today. And you can see my other races. Meanwhile, in the fluffy books, let's see. Oh, dear. Well, I finished Tales from Moomin Valley in the Moomins. And in Georgette Heyer, I finished Sprig Muslin. So where am I now? In the Moomins, I'm reading Moomin Papa at Sea. And I have to tell you, the Moomins just get better with every book. They really do. The first book, the very simple one, the Comet book, is like, okay. But it's really not as representative as you might think. I think the author, Tove Jansson, is at her best when she does shorter stories as chapters. And they're just wonderful. And she takes on a lot of complicated stuff. And I'm really impressed because the Moomins seem to lose innocence a little bit towards the end of the series. They talk about things I didn't expect, like cigarettes, But they're really, really fantastic. I am really enjoying where I am, Moomin Papa at Sea. And I think there's one more book in the paperback sets. I don't know if I'm going to go into the comic books, but I just love them. Georgette Heyer. I finished Sprig Muslin. Okay. I really hated this for the first quarter of the book, and I pushed on through, and it's very worth it. It's very worth it. The heroine is hard to love in the beginning. Now, I hung on because the hero's name is Sir Gareth. Georgette Heyer knows her British lit, let me tell you. And Gareth is, of course, the uxorious knight of the Round Table in a nice way. Uxorious meaning too devoted to his wife. The Knights of the Round Table in Arthurian lit are supposed to go out and do the good things. And Gareth rescues a maiden, Lynette, or Lyonors, depending on which version you're following, her sister. Lynette and Lyonors are sisters. And Gareth is the guy who just takes a licking and keeps on ticking. He's always nice. And when he gets his lady, when he gets Lynette, he marries her. And he loves her so much he doesn't want to go out and be a knight anymore. He just retires to the castle and raises his children. He's just the simply sweetest of the knights. He is my favorite of the Knights of the Round Table, I have to say. So she comes up with Sir Gareth, and my ears pricked up, and I said, wait a minute, what the heck? And, okay, so you meet the heroine, whose name is escaping me, but then you meet the stupid young guy who shows up, and his name is out of romantic literature as well, Hildebrandt. And I'm like, okay, she's not kidding. She's going for Gareth and Lynette here. Except Lynette is a lying piece of Sprig Muslin. She just makes up these whoppers of stories, and you just hate her. And, after the first quarter of the book, you just want Sir Gareth to pull over to a nearby well and drop her in and get on with his life. But I have to tell you, it builds up to one of the most hilarious conclusions I have ever seen in a romance novel, where they're all in the apple orchard together when all the people looking for the heroine catch up with her. And it's just hilarious. The whole scene in the apple orchard. And of course, it's a real parody. It's Eden. They're in the Garden of Eden together. They've all kind of found this retreat. And the people who should not be together are all buddies hanging out in this garden. It is so funny. And the real heroine, of course, whose name I do remember, is Hester. And if you know your biblical stuff, you'll know where her name's coming from too. And that's very perfectly done. And Hester, or Esther, well, her name is Hester, I'm joking there. But that was a hint, for you Bible fans. But anyway, the scene in the apple orchard with all the good guys and everybody in the real early 19th century rulebook, everybody in the apple orchard is hopelessly sexually compromised by all being there together. And somehow that all works too. So Sprig Muslin was hilarious, but you got to make it through those opening chapters where you just want to kill the person who I would really call the second female lead, but she is the person wearing the Sprig Muslin, the young innocent. So I've moved on to A Civil Contract. And A Civil Contract's very, very interesting. A lot of Heyer people don't like it, apparently. I was looking at reviews of it. I'm really liking it. It's Georgette Heyer returning to the same theme she handled early in her career in The Convenient Marriage, I think it's called. I think it's A Marriage of Convenience. I think it's The Convenient Marriage. And in The Convenient Marriage, it's really hard to like the heroine. She's young and she's dumb and she just goes berserk when she marries a bit above herself. And at the end, you just realize it's going to be okay. It's one of those strong, silent male characters that Heyer likes, particularly in her more historical romances. But A Civil Contract, she's back at this idea of what happens when a rich guy who seems in charge of things marries badly. And in this case, he marries because he inherits a heavily financially devastated estate from his useless father, who may or may not have committed suicide. And it's interesting because the heroine is great. She's really great. And it's really about, can you learn to love somebody? And I have to hand it to Georgette Heyer, because the femme fatale in this, who our hero wanted to marry, you begin to realize how she is playing the game. And at one point, she attacks the girl who marries above herself and basically says, he belonged to me. And she says, you only married him to advance yourself socially. But it's really weird because Heyer does a masterful job with that dialogue, because by her responses, by the heroine's responses, and she's just kind but firm, but by her responses, it reveals how much the femme fatale was doing the exact same thing and was playing this elaborate game based on hysteria and romantic ideals that would make for a lousy marriage. And it's just a really great piece of dialogue where at the end of it you say, I feel sorry for whoever marries Julia. So I'm enjoying A Civil Contract. It's the work of an older, more experienced person, and she really is looking at the social issues, because one of the things you get when you read Regency novels by someone who knows what they're talking about and is very interested in the very upper class, which Jane Austen wasn't doing. And Jane Austen wrote within her own experience and is still the best romance writer in the Regency. I'm sorry, she is. But okay, she's writing great lit. But Georgette Heyer is certainly worth reading. And it's worth reading in the order they're written, because you can see her kind of growing up here and thinking about a lot of things. One of the things that's interesting is the wealthy class has so few limitations placed on it. Note to self, not unrelated to current events going on in our world. And the Regency wealthy have so few limitations placed on them that they gamble away fortunes. They don't know how to live in a more responsible way. And one of the things Heyer keeps coming back to is that the heirs to these vast estates, or even small estates, really have to hope that the people who come before them are responsible financially, and also have to really learn how to manage their estates. And they have to learn the limitations on things like gambling and chasing petticoats, as they call it. Very, very interesting stuff. And you can see Heyer thinking about it a lot in Civil Contract. I am deeply enjoying it. Something I really like, there it is, the Volare crafting pillow. What you say? There is a picture. It's sitting on my love seat in my study, and then you can see me immersed in the middle of it to show you the scale there. Those of us who used nursing pillows when we had newborns, you're going to recognize this. And a lot of times people have said, why don't you just use one of those? You could. They have a whole lot of ads about why you can't, but you can. And I figured either get a nursing pillow or get one of these. I decided to opt for one of these. I think this was $65. I do feel it was worth it. It's a hugely overstuffed, I guess it's about, Minerva jumps in my lap, about maybe 3/4 to 2/3, somewhere in there, of a circle. And I think the best part of the price is the cover on it. That the pillow itself, sure, but the cover is very nice. I got their cheapest version. They've got 3 versions, but if you go to their website, and I'll stick a link in the show notes, you can have a look at the different things. I bought this because I had sore wrists after the whole download all the Kindle books thing. I had 1,200 of them, And so anyway, I really needed something to rest my wrists on, and also realized I'd like to have something to have around me in bed that I can rest my elbows and my wrists on when I'm crocheting or knitting in bed. Tip of the hat to our own Gigi Knitmore, who has been known to knit in bed. Okay, and so I got this, and I have to say I'm wildly satisfied with it. What's hard to see in the picture is it has a little luggage clasp in the back, the kind of thing that you have on backpacks for clips for your straps. Anyway, you can, in other words, strap it closed with a little thin strap at the back. And so it will hold it on you while you're sitting up, so it doesn't slide out from under your elbows. Because if you look at the shape, it looks like it's going to. And I have to say, I have worn this around my waist for the last week, sitting here in the captain's chair while seeing patients. And this has been incredibly helpful during talking to patients. I can prop my phone on it when I'm talking to them. And if I have to use my phone, there's a few cases where I do, although normally I use tablets, but it's a long story why that happens that I probably don't fully understand myself. But at any rate, it's really been convenient. It's been nice to sit resting my arms and my elbows on this while I talk to patients. It's very nice to crochet on, and it works really well in bed. So this is the Ravelry pillow. It was originally designed for gamers so that they could put their joystick or controller on the very front of this and rest their arms on it instead of leaning forward onto a desk. It's a really great idea, but then they start selling it to the crocheting community, and I've seen one ad that references knitting. So there you go. Meanwhile, let's see, put a lid on it. Well, a little disappointing this week. I finally did day 25 of the Tea Tasting 2024 calendar from Plum Deluxe. Day 25. I'm just going to apologize straight up front for what I'm about to tell you. Day 25 was Wise Orange Decaf Black. Sounds good. I like strongly orange teas that go along with a black tea or a decaf black. Okay, contains decaf black tea, ginger root, orange peel, yes, sage, I'm really allergic to sage, and orange essence. But I looked at this and said, all right, sage is the second to last ingredient, so I probably won't taste it that much, and I really like orange and ginger against a decaf black. I'm thinking, why even put sage in this? Yeah, well, okay, that was the good news. I made it, and I basically spat out the first mouthful because it was a mouthful. It smelled like sage, and it tasted like sage. Now, having said that, I actually like the flavor of sage. I'm also allergic to the herb. And I felt it right away, and so that's why I got it out of my mouth and said, there is no way I can drink this. I mean, I literally just took the packet and put it in the trash. I just can't drink it. This is probably delicious. But I will tell you, strangely for me, I don't know if I just got a bag that is not representative. There's 2 bags, and I only had one of them because I'm not going to risk this twice. To me, this was a strongly sage tea. If you like sage, you're going to love this. but I could not even taste the rest. All it did was taste like sage to me. So I didn't have a good experience on this one, Wise Orange Decaf Black. All I can say is if you want to try this, get ready for the sage. Most of the time, looking at the ingredients, I would have expected this to taste like a ginger-orange blend. I would not have expected the sage to come through that way, particularly since they even add orange essence. So I'm not quite sure why this one worked out this way, and I'm really sort of sad about it. But I'm now finished the Plum Deluxe calendar, the herbal teas, and I have to tell you, this was a winner. I will definitely invest in this next year if it's available. So please don't hold this against Plum Deluxe. I really, really enjoyed this calendar deeply. I am allergic to lavender and to sage. I think there's one more thing that I'm forgetting that I can't drink, but I can't remember what it is. At any rate, there were only, out of 25 days, there were 2 days where I just said, no, that's too much high risk for me. I did accidentally drink one of the ones that I was allergic to and didn't have a reaction and really enjoyed it, but I can't remember which one it was. So I really like this. What am I really saying? Well, I like herbal tea and I like interesting blends. And normally if I go anywhere and I pick randomly 25 types of tea, I would expect to find like 5 or 6 of them unpalatable, that I just wouldn't like the flavor, forgetting the whole issue of allergies. So for me, I drank 23 days of this and just really liked them. I don't mean they were okay. I mean they were really, really good. So I really recommend this, and I can't wait for next year. I can't wait for another one to come out. I'm a big fan of their little packages they have quarterly where they say, here's an assortment of spring teas. Do you want them black or do you want them herbal? I like to get those. I really enjoy the random tea tastings. Let us march on to the blather, shall we? Well, first, a fond farewell to Joann's Fabrics, which gave up the ghost this past week. They decided they weren't going to keep any stores open, and they embraced a much bigger liquidation plan. And of course, they sold everything to liquidators who are not saying when things will close in our local stores. We already lost our store up in Palmdale. And so who knows when we're going to lose the one down in Santa Clarita, but it's not going to survive. So there aren't going to be any local fabric stores, and I probably need to make one more journey down there to see if I can get any solids for a bunch of quilts I want to make from my scraps. But so it goes. Meanwhile, I had a fabulous weekend, which is good. The week was exhausting. And it's just the usual things that go on in a job like mine. I have a great job, and I work for a great employer. I'm very, very happy with the people I work for. So it's not about that either. But, there's always technical flubs and things that go wrong and patients that get snotty and all that stuff. And I have a really nice caseload. I have to tell you, most of my patients are just delightful. So, at the end of the week, though, I can be rather tired out. And I was this week. So yesterday, Saturday, I just was kind of paralyzed. Are you tasting me? What's going on? She's like bathing my right knuckles here. I don't know. You want me to pet you? I can do that. So today I woke up and said I really must get things done. And I had one of these sensational days. My son is off working. I don't know if I've told you this. We're very proud of him. He's got a job. It's very part-time, but he's basically shoveling manure on a petting zoo farm, and he's doing a great job. He's loving it. And so suddenly my husband and I and he are having the discussions of managing money and handling income when you get a paycheck. So that's been very, very interesting. And we're just delighted because he really likes it. He's only working 3 hours on Saturday and Sunday mornings. The farm is not too far from us, and he is very proud of the work he's doing. So that's going just delightfully. He's also trying out for a musical, and they have a long, slow audition process, partly because it's community theater, and I think they're trying not to scare away people by just rejecting them outright in the very beginning. If nothing else, he'll be in a chorus. So we will see how that goes, but we're very, very pleased with him, very proud because he's working on this. Meanwhile, good heavens, is it that late? It is. I just got my little bedtime chiming. Today I got up and the boys were out, And I got up and had a bath and just had energy again, just got going on things. So I did a lot of Roomba cleaning. I Roomba'd all over the place and cleaned them both at least twice, and worked on the kitchen and got very excited, and went through the refrigerator and found we had some broccoli and cauliflower getting old. So they all went into the Instant Pot. I chopped them coarsely, put them in the Instant Pot, and set it on 3 minutes just to get everything to cook to mush. And I added some of my chicken broth into that as well. Anyway, and so when that was done, I poured it into my Vitamix blender, a big, powerful blender, added cream and grated shredded cheddar. And I just did all this by eye. I added, oh my goodness, Himalayan salt, black pepper, some good organic black pepper, and I think cayenne and turmeric, and a little bit of onion and garlic, and just blended it all up. Came out very, very nice. And meanwhile, I made my easy spaghetti sauce, the tomato sauce, and put all that together. And so those are all now in containers in the fridge, because that will take care of me all week, because the boys are out like 3 or 4 nights this week to rehearsals and various projects that my son is participating in. So I have a lot of meals on my own, and I just decided, let's celebrate. Let's have a lot of good pasta sauce at least. Well, I treat it like a meatball soup. And we had some, older chicken in the fridge, and we had pork that nobody was eating, ground pork and ground beef. So that all went into the sauce. So this should be one boffo sauce. So I just had a really nice day putting all that together, did a grocery run and got fresh veg for tonight's dinners. And meanwhile, really cranked forward on the Astraeus color work and finished one panel, as I was saying, of the September sweater. So things are looking really, really nice. And I just really needed that. I want to get on to some mending now that it is Mending March, or maybe Make It March. I don't know which. But I have to say I'm still tangled in my sweatering, because while the weather is cool, this is the time to do sweaters. So I'm deeply, deeply enjoying that. I'm deeply looking forward to getting the Astraeus to the place where it's just all miles of stockinette in that insanely beautiful blue yarn from Lisa Souza. So if you go to the show notes, apart from all of that, you can see my list of community resources that you've heard me talk about before, the calendar of events in the Santa Clarita Valley for all us fiber junkies. And then, of course, there's a calendar, my calendar. It's mostly my upcoming races, although you will notice I have March 18th off, which I'm just taking off because I am. CFR 11, I don't know. I have heard so little back from anybody about it. I know it's early. It's not till October. But if you're interested, you should probably let me know. But this leads me to say that Minerva gets the last word. And you can see a picture of her there. She and I are touching our index fingers together. But I learned a new thing. I don't know if I've told you this one yet. If I have, I apologize. But I heard someone do the cat vocalization for "come here." And I think Minerva speaks a dialect. But I'm going to try and do it. And try to keep, calm when you hear this. But it goes like this. Meow. Meow. Yes, she's looking at me. Yes, that means something. Minerva sometimes actually comes when I do that, which surprises me. If I make other cat noises or just call her, she, may eventually come. If I do that noise, she comes maybe 2 out of 3 times. But she seems very interested in it. She's lying in my lap now, so she's probably wondering why I'm even saying it. I suspect, first of all, that I'm doing it wrong, but I heard somebody doing this, a researcher who does cat language, and says, yeah, they do actually have meaningful verbalizations. Now, they usually don't talk to each other. Cats don't tend to make noises to each other, except they talk to kittens. But do they have specific words? And this researcher is saying, yes, this is the "come here" word in cat language. And again, you have to wonder, is there dialect? Because I've never heard Minerva, who is in my lap and just really loving on me right now for some reason, just really needing love, I guess, because I just did that noise. I've never heard Minerva make this noise that I can remember. But I was surprised because I did it to her one time and she looked at me thoughtfully and she made an almost version of it. And I thought, is she imitating me? Is she correcting my language? I will never know. But for those of you who need to call your cat, meow, it's kind of meh-ow, meow. Yeah, it's definitely getting her attention, but that's probably the emphasis. Okay, I would like you to know that I speak and read 10 languages and sign, because you have to count ASL as not speaking, is signing. And I'm working on number 11 apparently. But I think the older I get, the more I realize that we're just one big happy family here on the farm, that the animals are an important part of my community. And remember, when we are in community, we are protecting the individual as well, that the community is good for the individual. They are not separate entities. So please, everybody, now more than ever, particularly if you're listening to me in the States here, think about your community and see what positive things you can do with those helpers in your community. Meanwhile, please, everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.